College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed on 101 ESPN.
Fracas-filled holiday weekend has given way to some major moving and shaking on the player personnel side of things across college football. Greetings, everybody, post-Turkey Day, and welcome back in to the 101 ESPN YouTube channel as well as 101ESPN.com. My name is Bradford Bruns, riding with you once more live from our studio in Creve Coeur. It is the College Football Connection, working overtime for you, although not exactly in the sense I had envisioned when pulling on to Olive Boulevard a few short hours ago. We will get to that. We will explain, but first and foremost, wherever you were for Thanksgiving, with whom you were celebrating and spending time, hope that it was a most enjoyable experience. And perhaps somewhere along the way, courtesy of 101ESPN.com, maybe you were able to digest and consume some of our special programming pertaining to an unforgettable senior day in mid-Missouri. Last Saturday, that was the focus, right? It was the epicenter at Memorial Stadium. The elements were in play. The storylines were in play as 27 different student athletes were recognized before the 2:35 p.m. kickoff. Brady Cook, Theo Weiss, Johnny Walker Jr. among those individuals greeting family, being saluted by the 62,000 strong crowd at Faurot Field, weathering those elements. Multiple inches of snow already on the ground in Columbia by the time I had arrived, hours before kickoff, and yet the game was able to unfold as scheduled, and what a stretch run it was. Well into the second half, the fourth quarter particularly, Missouri needed yet another comeback in order to seal the deal with respect to the latest edition of the Battle Line rivalry, but it accomplished exactly that. 28-21 over the visiting Hogs. The series has been dominated. It continues to be dominated by MU over the last decade, really ever since MU set foot in the SEC. This one, however, did require Brady Cook, quite predictably, quite fittingly, to march his offense down the field with 4 minutes and change to go. And then, with 1 minute and 53 ticks left, Cook with the quarterback keeper, not a more poetic way you could have scripted or imagined for him to be able to go out with the climactic touchdown, the defense holding as well. A sublime performance for nearly all four quarters by Corey Batoon's unit. As a result, Missouri improving to 9-3, finishing the regular season right there and awaiting a bowl destination to be unveiled in the next few days after conference championship action. But to be there live, to be on hand, and to witness all of those seniors treading very carefully over into the terrain, the rocks over on the hill, and picking up their particular objects before being hoisted onto the shoulders of the underclassmen. It was a privilege, not something that I will soon forget either. Nonetheless, we understood that last weekend it was a banner one. It was another frenetic one for all of college football across campuses everywhere. So we were going to broaden the scope for you, right? We were going to talk about Michigan and Ohio State, the latest edition of the game, from which somehow, miraculously, the Wolverines were able to emerge victorious. Then, of course, you had the melee that ensued thereafter. You had the subsequent $100,000 fines levied against both schools, and the ACC wasn't immune from the shenanigans either. You had more melodrama. You had more fisticuffs really befitting Jack Johnson and Tom O'Leary. But we have to table all of those subjects in the here and now, because earlier today, one of the most decorated and perhaps the most singularly gifted athlete to pass through the doors there at Memorial Stadium, made his intentions for the future well known. They are loud and clear for everybody to be able to take in now. The star junior wide receiver, Luther Burden, who was among those recognized in front of family members on Saturday to walk with his brethren. He made it official via his various social media platforms right away, late in the morning, and then ESPN's Pete Thamel doubled down on the reporting a short while thereafter. he is going to declare for next April's NFL draft, which renders him ineligible, obviously, to be able to partake in any bowl that is thrown in the direction of the Tigers in the next week or so to come. And this really is a foregone conclusion in a number of different ways, is it not? You had Burden walking last weekend. We played the audio last week, actually, on the College Football Connection Battle Line Rivalry Preview Show on 101ESPN.com and the 101 ESPN YouTube channel, courtesy of ABC 17 in Columbia. And to try to contextualize right now Burden's overall effect and lasting value to the university, to the program, is a darn near impossible endeavor, right? But what you do know, what you see on the paper, is indisputable. The sixth most receiving yards in program history, despite only having 3 campaigns with which to work. And in 2023, he piled up the third highest number of yards for any receiver in a single campaign in MU history. And yet, as I've spent more time in the defensive meeting room, in the media room, all told in mid-Missouri this year, listening to the head coach Eli Drinkwitz, to his post-game pressers, to the give-and-take exchanges with the regular members of the media, and then yours truly as well, there has been one thing that has been profoundly striking as far as leadership intangibles, and those were not outlined to the same degree, not nearly, when Luther Burden III first set foot on campus about 3 years ago. Coming over from East St. Louis as a prep standout, the obvious physical and athletic talent, it was there on full display from day one. But to hear Drinkwitz basically wax poetic on the young man Burden has become, and how down the stretch in 2024, the numbers were a little more muted for a number of different reasons. Number one, quarterback play as necessitated by not having a healthy signal caller for the entirety of the year. Even Kirby Moore's offense struggled at times. It was stagnant. It did not maneuver along and motor along in the same way that we saw at that high clip a year ago. Also, when you're having the defense roll over double and triple coverage on you, you're not going to hit pay dirt on as many occasions. But all you had to do on Saturday night in Columbia was listen to the reverence with which Drinkwitz spoke about number 3 and how his imprint on the university, it far exceeds anything that you can read on the page, that you can take in on the television screen, or even being present at Memorial Stadium. He has made that lasting impact, and he has done so in a way that certainly reflects those qualities, those virtues that everybody looks for in one true son. Take a listen to Drink from Saturday night.
The story of Luther Burden's not going to be the one catch that if he doesn't make today, we don't win. It's going to be the monumental decision he made to come to the University of Missouri when nobody else thought he should. And his trajectory to change the program, as much as these seniors, for Luther Burden to choose to come here, for him to work to prove that he's the best player on the team, for us to make the play versus Oklahoma on 3rd and 16, or the first play in overtime versus Vanderbilt, or the 4th down catch versus South Carolina, or the 4th and 17 versus Florida. There's numerous plays. He's one of the best players, if not the best player to ever come to the University of Missouri. And for him to make that decision, change the trajectory of my career in our program. And so that's what's going to be remembered about Luther Burden. I'm not worried about today's game. This is a legacy deal. Same thing with a lot of different players. I mean, there was 6 inches of snow today. Like, you're not always going to be able to figure out how to do some of those things. So that's not the story. The story is the legacy that he leaves the University of Missouri by choosing to come here, and I'm super proud of him.
Powerful words, poignant sentiments from the head coach, somebody who has been able to go on that ride with Burden for the last 3+ years, from the recruiting stage over in East St. Louis all the way into the here and now. I watched Jeremy Maclin. I watched the DX missile. So many different, incredibly accomplished wideouts have passed through Faurot Field in the last decade to 20 years alone. And yet, when we encapsulate the tenure of Luther Burden in Columbia, Missouri, he is going to be remembered fondly and reverently for his ability to take that message, to basically go against the grain, to shun offers, multiple ones at that, a multitude of offers from big blue bloods, and say, I'm going to carve and create my own uniquely distinct personal path and be a star at the University of Missouri and show everybody else, young kids as well, littered around the region, both across the river and in St. Louis, I can do it, you can do it as well. That is the stuff, as Eli Drinkwitz said, of legacy, and it is something we are going to remember well into the future, well after subsequent classes have passed through and maybe even some of Burden's own numbers have been eclipsed. Can't wait to see exactly how it works out for him in Indy, where he will be drafted, where he will land, and certainly it is going to be something that we will monitor here on the College Football Connection on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com in the spring. Spring ball, though, no. Put a pin in that, because elsewhere around the country today, Luther Burden III wasn't the only star generating headlines. USC quarterback, well, he was with the Trojans. Miller Moss, he is hitting the portal after being displaced following 9 starts this season. You may recall over the weekend that USC throttled in the second half by Notre Dame, a 6-6 team this season. But Moss filled in ably for Caleb Williams last year in the bowl game for Lincoln Riley's squad. However, he is going to be on the market per se, and it just so happens, I'm just throwing it out there into the universe, that the University of Missouri will have a QB opening in 2025. I'm just going to let that sit, let it marinate, and touch upon it in a later installment of our broadcast. Bradford Bruns with you. Marty and Alvin, they will be back with me later in the week. We are talking about championship affairs. We are down to the very thick of it. Bowl bids are about to be handed out. The CFP rankings are about to be announced very shortly, too. We only have another installment or two of those to go as we start to really motor through December and get you set for a rocking new year indeed.
You've been listening to the College Football Connection podcast with Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed on 101 ESPN Sports Talk for St. Louis.